most people that are successful, 65% of the world's successful people are self-made men and women. I think they look at it and go, I'm going to change the narrative that what has happened in the past. Life is about visualization. I do something called goal setting. I read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I've read it 28 times till today. And the only thing that you will ever see that all spiritual leaders, all public figures, anybody else, one thing they agree upon, manifestation, prayer, speaking into universe. I don't care what they all agree upon that. And that's goal setting. They do also agree that it can be just as bad. If you keep saying you will never get a job, you will always be in an abusive relationship, you are manifesting and you are convincing your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind will work to make that happen. That's the only thing that they all agree upon. And on the flip side, I am of value. I'm going to do this. I'm never going to do that.
This episode of Inside the Process is powered by Trainual, the one app that organizes who does what and how. Check it out at trainual.com.
Well, welcome, Daymond, to this backstage episode of Inside the Process. We're so stoked to have you.
I appreciate it. I love being here. I love working with you.
You obviously need no introduction because you've built brands that have become actual movements. How have you managed to rally your team around the vision for these brands and really keep that vision intact from day one to day 10,001?
I don't know if I've ever been asked that before, so thank you for asking me a question that I haven't been asked before about giving people or getting them around the vision. I think that internally when managing people, I think they see that I'm going to work just as hard as them or outwork them. And I think that they believe that if he can work like this when they're having a hard time, they can work like this. It wasn't always like that in the earlier days. I think that, thank God, I've had a couple of successes in my life. I've had way, way, way more failures. In the earlier days, I always tell the story that there's this big 05 when all the FUBU stuff. The company was meant to have 5 founders. There's 4 that everybody knows, because we went through 10 versions of that 5th member. I could never get them to believe. That's when I didn't have any money. That's when I still was out working everybody and the company was growing, but I didn't have a lot of that. But my work ethic really got people to follow in. Now, it is sometimes frustrating to still work for me because I have a million ideas. And by being on Shark Tank, I have a million companies coming in. And, people sometimes, I always say, like, Willy Wonka's factory looks great from the outside, but when you get in, it's messy. But leadership, I think, is able to tell people where you're going and why we're doing it, and able to show people that you're willing to make the mistakes and be vulnerable, I think. And that's the way that I work at it. There are others who show you the vision and say, if we do this, this, and this, we get there. However, sometimes you got to be very agile with your process of getting to the vision. But at the end of the day, you have to still tell people the vision. Because if everybody knew exactly or understood what you were doing, well, there's no need for you. You got to keep reinforcing it and sharing it along with work ethic.
I love that. And I love that you're leading by example. So thank you for being that type of person.
Thank you.
And FUBU was one of those big movements that I talked about earlier. And when you think about that business and how disruptive and innovative and creative and just, crushing all the barriers that came your way with that brand, how did you sort of preserve that innovative, creative, diehard energy while also building really structured systems around that?
Great question. The reason and the way that we preserved it was FUBU is and was exactly what every company should be. The founders and the owners and the people that work there were the customers. So every day we were designing something new that we wanted to see. We were solving a problem that we had.
Right.
So that kept the identity of it. I also understood that entrepreneurship is a team sport and that you need smarter people that have been where you want to go, and you need to find a way to induct them to show them the value. There's a lot of customers a person has. You have the end customer who is buying FUBU. I have the staff who needs to risk everything that they've learned or whatever the case is on my dream. So they're a customer too. I have my manufacturers who can manufacture for anybody. So they're my customer. And I have my distribution. So everybody is treated like a customer. And when I understood that as a team sport, I tried to find people who I may not know how to do ladies. Well, can I have you be a customer of mine who you rent my name and license it and do ladies? So that was the ability. So first of all, we treated everybody like a customer internally, and externally we found other people that will help take us there. And those are the two ways. Now, to be very honest, we lost our way many times. There are companies, look at Blockbuster, BlackBerry, Kodak, Red Lobster, Fridays. No matter how big you get, doesn't mean you don't lose your way if you end up becoming complacent. And we did come complacent sometimes, and that's why FUBU was not Nike.
Mm-hmm. And you've obviously built so many incredible businesses, and I feel like people have probably drilled you about operations and systems and how can I be you and how can I do what you do. But one of the things I admire most about you has nothing to do with your success, but rather your story of resilience, resourcefulness, and making something of yourself no matter what stood in your way. So I had a tough upbringing as a kid.
Yeah.
Both my parents were incarcerated, in and out of jail, drugs, house to house, mental, physical abuse, all the things, the whole sad story. But those things have shaped me and have made me resilient, resourceful, scrappy, all the things that I see in you as well. So it's like, I feel like there's other people like me that admire you and look to you for those reasons. How do you feel like your early life and the struggles you faced early in your career have really shaped like how you show up, how you operate, how you think today?
Well, first of all, congratulations on you never overcome that adversity. You just learn to deal with it in the way you've dealt with it. So congratulations to you because you didn't allow what had happened in the past to dictate who you are. And there's a lot of people that do that. And it's unfortunate because I think everybody could be a rock star. I use those same exact tools and said, I got two options. Fall by the wayside or, look at those who have success. And whatever success is. My first form of understanding what success was, as a little kid, when the world is, I want to be Superman, I want to be Iron Man, I want to be whoever, okay? Reality sets in, right? I want to make a lot of money and have a beautiful wife and kids. But then reality sets in, and then all of a sudden, the environment around you becomes, I just don't want to be abused, or I just don't want to be incarcerated. Mm-hmm. And you may look at that for a little while and you start to grow. Wait a minute. But there's other people who never had to sell drugs. They're a doctor or a lawyer. Your goal and your thirst for a living becomes much higher. And so I always say the same energy to think big is the same energy you think small. So I always looked at it as I can either settle and let things fall by the wayside or look at higher and higher people and individuals that have done it. They came from nothing. They didn't even have a house. They came from other countries where their entire families are massacred, and look what they've done. I look at the beauty in the data and see where I can do it. And I think that's what most people that are successful, 65% of the world's successful people are self-made men and women. I think they look at it and go, I'm going to change the narrative that what has happened in the past.
So do you feel like a lot of it is just visualizing your future, positive affirmations, like those types of things when you're kind of rewiring your brain in a sense?
Life is about visualization. And I do something called goal setting. I shared it a lot of times. I didn't come up with it. I read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I've read it 28 times till today. And the only thing that you will ever see that all spiritual leaders, all public figures, anybody else, one thing they agree upon, forget what religion, creed, color, they all agree upon some form of a manifestation, prayer, speaking into universe. I don't care if you're yoga, I don't care what, they all agree upon that. And that's goal setting. And they do also agree that it can be just as bad. If you keep saying you will never get a job. You will always be in an abusive relationship. Everybody in your community is dead or in jail by 21. Your gender is something that nobody will ever respect. You are manifesting and you are convincing your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind will work to make that happen. That's the only thing that they all agree upon. And on the flip side, I am of value. I'm going to do this. I'm never going to do that.
Do you feel like you spoke your life kind of into existence?
Of course I speak my life. And do I, I read the same exact goals every single morning when I wake up and the same exact goals every night when I go to sleep. 6 of them expire in 6 months. The other 4 expire in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years. The reason I read them before I go, and they all range from health to time with my family, time with my faith. I never hit my 6-month goals because I set them so big. So if I'm going to do this amount of business, I do this amount. When I reset it, it's this amount. The reason I read them before I go to bed, I want it to be the last thing I'm thinking about when I go to sleep. My mind starts to think about those things. That's what I read. And the reason I read them in the morning is because I want it to be the first action I take. If I don't read them in the morning, then you're going to call me. I'm going to look on social media. My mind is going to wander.
Right.
And so it's pure manifestation.
So you went all the way out to 20 years, you said. How do you visualize that? Do you sit down and say, okay, I'm going to document it? Or have you over time just like started taking notes as the thoughts have come to you? Is there like a ritual or an exercise that you sort of go through?
Well, it's a really good question. The ritual is you visualize where you want to be, though. You see, because to say that, when you read goals and stuff like that, and it's sort of as simple as you want with 2, with 3. You could be a person working at UPS right now. Say, I'm going to start learning a little bit about financial intelligence, and I'm going to put away a certain amount of my salary that if I look at it over 20 years will compound, and I'm going to research every month a way to have income producing, whether it's timeshares or income producing Airbnbs, and I'm going to slowly find a way to get that small little house that I want out in the Bahamas. And I see myself walking on that beach holding my wife or husband or daughter's hand, or my dog strolling every single morning with that sun beating on me. I'm in a white t-shirt and cut-off shorts, and I see the path of that sand behind me, and the waves are crashing right there. And then you can keep seeing yourself there. Just keep seeing yourself there. Keep seeing yourself there.
It sounds like you're doing more than just visualizing. You're almost activating all of your senses. Can I smell it? Can I taste it? Can I feel it?
You have to. When you want to get that new house, is the doorknob brass or is it glass? Is it a huge door or is it a small door? When you open it up, is it a spiral staircase? Is there bread baking? Is significant other there? Is your dog barking? When you walk to the back, is it a forest? Is it a desert? Is it an ocean? Is it a metropolitan city? How does it smell? Are there the leaves smelling? Is it the ocean? Is the grass cut? Is it a long field? You have to see it.
Yeah, and feel it. It sounds like too.
Yeah.
I guess I sort of pride myself on working harder than most people, and you do that better than anyone. And I do have a vision for my life and sort of reverse engineer it the same way that you're talking about. And a lot of people call you the king of the grind, which I think is so funny. And even today, we have you for just a moment before you're on the next plane out of here. What routines do you feel like separate you from the people who burn out? Because I think that's something we all tend to struggle with.
Stealing away moments within the day as much as I can. I landed at 9. I went immediately to Whole Foods to buy some healthy stuff that I've been trying to alter my diet, some fermented stuff, and then I went over to my hotel and I did some sprints up and down the hill, and then I went back to my emails, and I'll have this conversation with you, and then I'll go and get this thing called FUBU, where I get my blood drawn out and they takes the inflammation out of my blood. So now I've managed to do my health within that time. I'll spend a half an hour talking to my daughter at 6 o'clock time here, which is 9 o'clock. She goes to bed, and I'll Zoom and I'll play Twitch with her, because it's the only thing she'll like. She's 8 years old, so we'll have that time together, and then I'll go to a dinner with a colleague of mine and a friend of mine, and then by that time after the dinner, it'll be about 11 o'clock at night. I'll just try to spend a half an hour to an hour speaking to my wife on the phone, and I'll probably have a half an hour conversation with factories in China that are now noon in China, and then I'll get on a red eye and I'll be in Atlanta in the morning, and I'll do it all over again. And I keep snatching those times away. And of course, I'll read my goals instead of at home. If I'm not home, I'm going to read them on the plane before I take off, and I'm going to read them when I wake up in the morning.
Do you feel like your time is always very meticulously planned out from the time you wake up to the time that you go to bed? Or is there ever moments where you're like, I have this whole free hour to just be creative or catch up on a show or...
Well, I think that's a really great question, because I have to rehack myself, because I don't have a mind that can sit dormant like that. So I have to intentionally do that in that hour walk on the beach, and I have to intentionally cut things off. I am not that meticulous, because when I have that extra hour, people bombard me. So I look at that as the weekends and stuff like that to try to take that time. And then there is I'm going fishing.
Yeah.
So I say my day is broken up in half an hour to hour slots, but they have this looseness. But the looseness of that day is to kind of grab all those fires that need to be put out, So it's right in the middle. I do a little bit of the escape time, but I try to block it. It's really hard but I think to answer your question is, depends. Sometimes every month, but usually every quarter, I reset everything and say, what am I taking out? I looked at my goals and I read these 10 goals. These 6 are the 6-month ones. One of these I don't really like. I've tried it enough. Don't like it. I did as much as I could. Didn't get where I liked. Done. That's gone. And looking at my time and calendar, where has this project gotten according to here? Cut that out. And I try not to bring in new projects, because they naturally happens. I'm not sure if I just confused you.
No. It makes a lot of sense. It seems like what separates people from burnout and being wildly successful and being high performance is just being super intentional. I think a lot of people have this notion that it's like you work 60 to 80 hours a week, and then you get like this little gap on the weekend. That's all you get. And then you got to go back to it. And it sounds like you're like, hey, I'm crushing it, but I'm making intentional times a couple times a day to connect, to do things I love, to, step away from the work. It'll be there when I come back.
I've done this long enough that I even know that as we got out of the world of COVID, and, I love and I really wish it could be this remote world, I knew that I can feel the 30% of my body is wasting time because of the 10 conversations that I could have, the 10 separate calls that I could have, one call in the office. And so I decided obviously to bring more people back in, and I'm starting to gain more of my time, but it's never put your head in the sand and it's just going to be okay. It's how to intentionally hack this, how to keep hacking it. And keep hacking it for joy too. My wife and I have not gone on enough dates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I gotta go on dates. She's super hot, and I don't want to interrupt her and her boyfriend when I come back home.
Oh no. So speaking of hacking, do you feel like there's one hack that anybody listening today can kind of take away, and you're like, this is the one thing that I think people should put into play today that's kind of changed my life?
Well, we already talked about the number 1, which is goal setting. The number 2 hack that I think is you have to be honest with yourself. Too many of us make decisions because of what we think other people, a whole bunch of people on social media that we don't know, need to hear, or because we're a Republican or a Democrat, or we're a Muslim or we're a Catholic or a Christian, and we don't hack ourselves and say, if I keep heading down this path, even though it's supposed to be the thing I do, what are the results I'm going to get? I'm just not happy. I'm doing this for my parents told me this is what success is, or I'm trying to impress this person, or I'm fearful of being open because this is my friend, and what are they going to say about me? Well, they're not your friend.
Right.
And when you get old enough, you start to say, why am I doing this again? Why am I spending all this money on something that just to drive up in something that I could be putting towards my retirement so that I'm comfortable in life? Why am I doing this again? Be very honest with yourself. Yeah, like you're the only one who knows what you want to accomplish in life. I've met too many people that are on their second and third career because they said, I did all of this for my first career because I thought that that's what I should do.
Mm-hmm. So the message of the day is visualize your life, set goals around it, and be hella intentional.
Be intentional and be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Be honest with yourself. Every year I cut people out of my life. It's the New Year's resolution I have. I started out about 8 years ago, and I think I'm not sure. I forgot if it was 4 people or 6 people. I cut them out of my life. I just cut them out. Done. It was a process that took me about 3 months to figure out. And when I cut them, I don't talk to them. There's no communication ever. And I said to myself, why am I doing this? Well, I said, if they're not a good friend to themselves, they're never going to be a good friend to me. Or if I'm not a good friend to them, maybe I'm the asshole. There's a reason. And even though I talk to them once a month or once every 6 months, every time I post something on social media, I'm thinking about what that person's saying about me. Every time I want to be honest with that person because I feel that I'm sharing something that I think is, hey, and they're mad at me, and now I'm saying I got to bite my tongue about it. That's not something I really should be around. And when I cut them all out, first started with 4 or 6 people. Now it's almost down to 0. My life became so much better. Talking to them once every 2 months is fine. There's some of my family members. Once or 2 months, you think this is only the 1 or 2 months you talk to them, but they're consuming a week of your life in that period of time. And you don't even realize how toxic that is. And then when you cut them out, you know what happens? You make room for other people that you deserve their love or they deserve yours.
Can level you up.
It's death by paper cuts. Mm-hmm. These are simple things that people just don't. You're in a toxic relationship, like you don't think about the weight it puts on you in your life, and the poor decisions you make because of something it's invisible.
Well, it's been so incredible to kind of see behind the curtain and just how you live your life so incredibly intentionally, how in tune you are with just everything around you. Thank you so much for joining us on Inside the Process. It's been such a pleasure.
Great job.
Thank you.